memories. To understand this, the learning, what is learning? Acquisition of new information is called as learning. The acquisition of new information and the storage of that information is called as memory. We have two parts of the brain, one is right, other is left. Initially we say this is non-dominant and this is dominant, but now we are not saying this. We are simply saying right is representational, R for R, left is logical. Left is logical. For language, speech, memory, math. And this is intuition based. It is for art, music, dance, spatial memory. And in this lesson of the right, we have hemispatial neglect, stereognosis. Hemispatial neglect. So we are living as if half side of the body is not existing. We will shave our beard on one side, we will comb our hair on one side, we will put the collar on one side only. Okay, so one side will be like that. So we are ignoring half of the body as if it is not existing in the life, but it is not so. So that is called as hemispatial neglect. And when there is lesion of the left, it is called as aphasia. So aphasia, when there is difficulty to speak, like Broca's aphasia, Wernicke's aphasia, these are because of lesion of left side. Now coming to the memory. Memory are of two types. One is called as declarative, other is called as non-declarative. Declarative is also called as explicit. Memory which you can declare. What is your name? What is your father's name? The fact. They are called as semantic memory. And if I ask you, how was your first day in your medical college? Okay, that is called as episodic or event. Now, semantic memories can be in which part of the brain? Lateral and anterior temporal cortex, prefrontal cortex. Events can be in hippocampus, medial temporal lobe or neocortex. Non-declarative memory is also called as implicit memory, and you cannot declare. For example, if I ask you, can you do surgery? You cannot say yes, you can do it. Can you drive a car? Yes, I can. So these you cannot declare, but you can show it. So they are called as non-declarative memory or implicit memory. They are various types. Like procedural, if you have learnt how to do gallbladder surgery, it is a procedure. For that, which part of the brain is involved? Basal ganglion. Which part of the basal ganglion? Striatum, cerebellum and motor cortex. So when skills are required, habits are required, it is called as procedural memory, non-declarative. Second is priming and perceptual. If I ask you, who discovered EEG? And you are not able to answer. Then I say, okay, it has something to do with MACD. Then you say burger, okay. It is Hans Burger. So I am priming you. It is called as priming, perceptual. Which part of the brain is involved? Neocortex. Or suppose if I say, I am going to write name of a country. Tell me which country is this. Immediately you will say India. So I am priming you. I am saying that I am going to write a color. Okay, tell me which color is this. Immediately you will say, even I have not finished writing, but you will say blue. So I am priming you. One word is priming to the whole word. Okay, so one word is priming to the whole. It is one letter is only by one letter. Which country is this? You can say Australia. Some letters are giving you hint of the whole word. It is a type of priming and perceptual. Neocortex is involved. Then there is associative and non-associative. Associative, amygdala and cerebellum is involved. What is associative? Have you heard about dog experiment? That you are giving dog the food, he is salivating, and whenever you give food, you ring the bell. So after some times, even by ringing the bell, dog will salivate, because his mind has associated food with the bell. So even the bell, ringing of bell, will cause dog salivation. It is called as associative learning. Classical conditioning, Pavlov experiment. Next is non-associative, like habituation and sensitization. Your personality is depending on to what you are habituated, to what you are sensitized. For example, you are sensitized to your studies. you become a good student, good doctor, and you are habituated. No, 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 no. I will not study today. Tomorrow I will study. So you will not become a good doctor. You are habituated. So when your response decreases after repeated stimulus, habituation. When response increases after repeated stimulus, it is called as what? Sensitization. When response increases, sensitization. When response decreases, habituation. When you are making same mistake again and again, it means you are habituated, you are not sensitized. What is sensitization? When you are sensitive, you will not repeat the mistake. It is called as sensitization. So habituation, you are habituated to all the mistakes in your life. Sensitized, no, I will not repeat this mistake. So your personality depends on non-associative learning. This is how a student become a good student, or doctor become a good doctor or a bad doctor. Or a person can be a good or a bad depending on to what things in the life he is sensitized. I must wake up early, he is sensitized. Otherwise, in the morning, okay, I can sleep for 4 hours. So it is all depending on the two factors. One is called as habituation, other is called as sensitization, doctors. Now coming to long-term potential, I will make this diagram. How long-term potentiation happen? Long-term potentiation. Short-term memory converts into long-term memory. It is because of which receptor? NMDA. This is NMDA and this is AMPA. This is AMPA and this is glutamate. Now just I will ask you, just tell me, when glutamates come outside, when glutamate is coming outside, tell me, when glutamate is coming outside, this is going to stimulate NMDA or AMPA? Immediately you will say NMDA, because it is the most important for memory. Just now I have told you, but this is not the answer. It will not stimulate NMDA because NMDA is blocked by magnesium. NMDA cannot be stimulated because NMDA is blocked by magnesium. So this is the reason when glutamate is released, it is going to attach with the AMPA. Sodium start coming inside. Influx of cation will cause depolarization, and here it is causing excitation. So it is called as excitatory postsynaptic potential, EPSP. Now this EPSP will cause removal of magnesium. So how this magnesium is removed? Answer is EPSP. If there would have been no EPSP, if there would have been no AMPA, NMDA will not be free from magnesium. So it is like a safety factor. It should not be unduly activated, otherwise it can cause seizure. That is why in pregnancy we give magnesium sulfate if there is eclampsia. Anyway, so after that NMDAs will be activated and there is influx of calcium. Calcium will activate nitric oxide. This will go retrograde and synapse become strong. Synapse become strong. It is retrograde synaptic enhancement. It is retrograde synaptic enhancement. So once again I will discuss this point. Step number 1, release of glutamate. Step number 2, activation of AMPA. Step number 3, influx of cation, generation of EPSP. Next step, removal of magnesium. Next will be activation of NMDA, influx of calcium, nitric oxide activation, retrograde synaptic strengthening. So you revise the topic for the first time, it becomes strong. You revise same topic second time, it becomes further strong. You revise for the third time. So more and more you are revising the topic, or more and more you are revising some habit, it becomes strong and strong. And short-term memory converts into long-term memory. So long-term memory can be formed either by emotion, limbic cortex, or by revision again and again and again and again. So multiple times you are revising and your synapse becomes strong. This is called as long-term potentiation. Long-term potentiation, LTP, conversion of short-term memory into long-term memory in the hippocampus by glutamate, by NMDA receptor is called as long-term potentiation.